The Crimes of Grindelwald wasn't the only movie I saw on Tuesday. And sure enough, I saw yet another movie that feels a little bit more like a setup movie. Granted, Robin Hood feels more of an actual movie than Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald does, but Robin Hood does end with a setup to a possible second movie, which I don't think is ever going to happen. It should be obvious, but Robin Hood is yet another retelling of Robin Hood. It tells of how he gets drafted into the Crusade, how when he comes back, all of his manor is gone and he is proclaimed to be dead, how he meets John and they form a plan to plot against the Sheriff of Nottingham, who has ruined Robin Hood, or Robin of Locksley, and they're going to hit the sheriff where it hurts. Steal money and give to the poor and yada yada. You know the story. This one's just a more action-packed, modernized version of it, even though it is still set in the medieval times. Or, yeah, it's weird. When I first saw the trailer for Robin Hood, it kind of reminded me of what they were trying to go for with King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword. But I actually liked King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. I wasn't too thrilled with Robin Hood. It didn't look all that good. But then again, maybe I'm just too big of a fan of the Kevin Costner Robin Hood. I like that version. But then again, that was the first version I ever saw, so that's probably why I like it. Instead, Robin Hood is kind of a average, mediocre, very forgettable film. There was some bright moments in this movie. I did like the action for the most part. I thought it was actually pretty neat. Granted, there was a lot of slow-mo and there was a lot of ridiculously cool, badass moments, but they were fine for what they were. Sometimes it gets ridiculous, almost to the point of so bad it's good, but still enjoyable being bad and still enjoyable when it is good. I did like the unique retelling of Robin Hood, and I thought all the acting was fine. The two performances that I enjoyed a lot were Taron Egerton as Robin Hood. I thought he made a good, interesting Robin Hood. Granted, a lot of it feels a little bit too much like his role in Kingsman, but at the same time, there was a little bit more of a Bruce Wayne and Batman sort of feel with Robin Hood and Robin of Locksley, where he goes on a sort of playboy disguise sort of thing like Bruce Wayne is, but this time with trying to be a lord to get in with the other rich people and kind of see who's in power and where the money is going from and what the plans are. I thought that was a unique twist to the Robin Hood story. And I think Ben Mendelsohn is great as the Sheriff of Nottingham. He is this very over-the-top villain, and he's given some of the most ridiculous and most sinister dialogue in this movie, and he does it extremely well, and he's a great villain to hate. Ben Mendelsohn is by far the best performance in this movie. Everyone else was okay. There wasn't anything that I thought was bad, but it was fine performances for the most part. Speaking of which, I better talk about Jamie Foxx because I do like his performance, but at the same time, the movie makes note that he's an Arab in the movie, and in this film, he doesn't really go for an accent, or none that I could discern, so he's like an American playing an Arab sort of thing in a medieval movie, and so even though I like his performance and intensity, there was also unbelievable that he was the character that they were trying to make him in the movie. if that makes any sense. So ultimately, the only thing that's good about the movie is it has action-packed moments. There is a unique telling of Robin Hood, which some points of the story are actually pretty good, and the performances are fine. So why is it such an average film? Well, again, it's forgettable, and there's a few unique turns to this movie that really don't work, in my opinion. There are definitely some moments in the story where it's so bad that it's good, and you question the ridiculousness of the choices that are made in the film. Like, at the beginning of the film, it shows a leather-bound book, and you have a narrator saying, this is the story of Robin Hood, and on the leather-bound book it's Robin Hood, and you're like, oh God. It's one of those movies, right, where it opens up and you see pages, and then it zooms in and it's the story. As soon as the book opens, it shows a comic book of the events, like a legit graphic novel, and I'm like, wait, what? Why? Huh? There are things like that in the movie that are baffling, and if that doesn't sound baffling to you, hear me out with this action sequence. When it gets to the point where he's in war and he's in the Crusades and he's fighting Arabs, it feels like a modern warfare movie, but during medieval times, where they have crossbows and bows and arrows, and it's crazy. There's these giant crossbows that act like Gatling guns and just shoot a mile a minute and destroy solid wooden pillars just like it was nothing. There's literally a moment where our heroes need support, and so they fire an arrow like it's a flare, and so that the catapults outside the city can see the flare and shoot the catapults at that exact position as if they're calling in an airstrike. It's almost like, yeah, warfare hasn't changed at all. It's the same as it is now as it was in the medieval times. It's just medieval times they didn't have guns, so they just used bow and arrows and catapults. Yeah, they could call in airstrikes like it was nothing, just with catapults and rocks. There's also the mines, which is literally a smelting plant, which I guess, I mean, they had ironwork back then, but it looks like a modern day smelting plant. There's also tanks in the movie and stuff, and it's pretty crazy. And yes, it's a fantasy film, but whereas in Legend of the Sword, the King Arthur movie that came out either last year or the year before, it had an excuse to have actual magic in the movie and be a little bit more creative and crazy, and you can accept that a little bit more. In this one, there is no magic. It's just medieval times, but modernized so that modern audience can grasp it, I guess. It's kind of baffling, some of these moments, and it had me laughing. There are some moments where the CGI is dreadful. One sequence in particular, the green screen, is so obvious, so apparent, and so bad. And it's this chase sequence where they're riding in chariots, and the chariots are chasing after Robin Hood, who's in another chariot. And whenever it gets a close-up of any of the main characters, they, of course, have a green screen in the back, and it looks so the characters look so out of place. It's obvious and bad and amateurish. So yeah, there's some really bad moments, real baffling moments that are so bad it's good, but again, they're bad, but I enjoyed them because of how ridiculous they were, and there wasn't enough ridiculousness to actually consider it a terrible, awful movie. just an average blockbuster that's kind of schlocky and just sort of forgettable in the end. I don't know if I have anything else to say about Robin Hood. I probably do if I rewatch it and make a longer video of it. But for now, I'm going to give Robin Hood 2.5 stars. So, did you see Robin Hood? What'd you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews and countdowns of this year, of previous years, of whatever. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.